Good morning. Thank you very much for your interest into open finance. My name is Anne-Sophie Morvan, and I am Head of Business and Legal Affairs at LoxUp. But next to these activities at LoxUp, I am also a member of the Open Insurance think tank, which is a think tank that concentrates on opening up insurances and also trying to create a standard. First, while looking into more motor insurance standard, but also looking into maybe the other use case for the future, because there are a lot of use cases in the insurance sector. And in this context, because I am a member of the Open Insurance think tank, I actually also represent the think tank at the European level. And I am a member of the expert group on European financial data space that has been created at DG FISMA, and which has been publishing this report on open finance just a few weeks ago. Well, it was on 24 October. And we are really looking into these topics, of course, at LoxUp, because we have been accompanying quite a lot of banks in their open banking journey, and we are also looking to help other financial institutions, banks opening up maybe other kind of APIs, other kind of products, other kind of data, but also insurance company, investment funds, etc. So, first of all, what do these two words mean, open finance? Well, in this report, we've considered that open finance should have a quite broad meaning. So it should be the sharing, the access, reuse of personal and non-personal data for the purposes of providing a wide range of financial services. So if we look shortly at this definition, it's important to look at personal and non-personal, because what is interesting is often when you speak about open banking or open finance, a lot of people only think about retail use cases. But there are quite a lot of corporate use cases that are very interesting. And one of the questions is, should you protect the data that are non-personal in the same way as you protect personal data? And we come back to the first presentation. And one other point of this definition is that we did not consider that this sharing, access, and reuse should be limited to financial institutions. It should not be only financial institutions that share data, nor only financial institutions that consume this data. So that is one important point, having an opening up of the data, generally speaking, to provide financial services. And I don't know if you attended the meeting yesterday. One of the presentations was about digital sovereignty from a lady from the European Commission. And there are really a lot of initiatives currently to open up the data. Open finance is one of this challenge, well, one of these points that they are currently working on at the European Commission, but the public sector is also concerned. A lot of other data are currently being opened up, and it's forced by the regulation, because as we will see, it's not always easy to have the financial institution really moving forward alone. And that's the question. Is it absolutely necessary? Should we really have a regulatory framework, or can we simply expect from financial institutions to open up alone? Jein, as would say the German. Ja and nein. Yes. As you can see, well, there are some institutions that are at the forefront. So I took rather banking, but you also have some insurance companies that start publishing some APIs to provide access to some data. Well, we have, at LoxUp, we have one insurance company, for instance, that provides access to a mortgage insurance API, which is rather like providing a service via API. But you also have Deutsche Bank that is providing access to certain data for a large variety of use cases. We can speak of addresses, age check, so you have large variety of data provided by large financial institutions. And that's the thing. large financial institutions. But that's very good what they're doing. Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, BPCE in France, BBVA in Spain. That's very, very good that they are opening up. But actually, it's a minority. And that is one of the challenge that we are facing and that the European Commission is very aware of. That there is a movement, but this movement is not really organized. There are different standards. There are some might request the pricing, but what is the pricing? So there are a lot of open questions. On a more global view, there is regulation coming everywhere. Regulation does not always mean that it's an obligation to provide data, but it's rather that countries around the world and authorities have noticed that if you have no framework, it might be quite disorganized and that it doesn't really help. This is not exhaustive. There are absolutely initiatives everywhere in the world, so it is only a few that I've picked. But even in the US, where actually open finance is working quite well only on a voluntarily basis, they are looking into changing the Dodd-Frank Act into something that would push more financial institutions to provide access to more data. So that's very interesting to see that even in a country in which it is quite successful, I mean, where you need to push less than in Europe, they are still thinking about pushing it more. We have Brazil, that is very famous to have been putting in place first an open banking framework, then opening it up to really open insurance also, so moving into open finance. I would have asked the gentleman, I'm not sure that he's still there. Yeah, you're still there. How is it in Brazil? Well, we can discuss this after happy to discuss this afterwards. And we have also in the UK. In the UK, they don't have to wait for Europe anymore, even though for open banking they did not wait for Europe. But they're also looking into a smart data primary legislation. So it's a global movement. But what is interesting is that from a country to another, there are different approach, very different approach. We will see how this will evolve, but it is very positive already. That being said, this was worldwide, and as you probably noticed, there was nothing about European Union. So let's look at what is happening in Europe. In Europe, I don't know if you know that, but there was a digital finance package that was published in September 2020. And in this digital finance package, the DG FISPA, well, the Commission, considered that open finance is an extremely important project that should be in place in 2024. So 2024 is tomorrow. But in this digital finance package, we were actually also supposed to receive an open finance framework for mid-2022. Given the fact that we are in December, you have not missed anything, they have not published it yet. What happened in the meantime? The expert group that is in place and that has been publishing this open finance report has been set up. We've been working a lot on various questions that relate to open finance. That is one thing, one working group. But next to this, the European Commission also published a consultation. And the reason why actually they're late on their initial schedule is that they've decided that they should not publish the open finance consultation before publishing the PSD2 review consultation. Because of course, so I don't know if everyone is from the financial sector, but PSD2, so this Payment Services Directive number 2 in the European Union, imposes to account servicing providers, so mainly banks and e-money institutions, to publish APIs to either initiate payments or grant access to certain data. So this PSD2 has been adopted, well, it's from 2015. Then there was the deadline, the banks had to publish their APIs in 2019. We are 2022. And to be fairly honest, this is not perfectly working still, because there are different standards, because there are several institutions that did not really either publish APIs or publish APIs that are really working. So there are some financial institutions that are perfectly working well, but others where it's not really. And that's where the European Commission has decided, well, let's learn from what happened with PSD2. Let's learn what mistakes we did. Let's learn with what we could improve. And based on that, we will set an open finance framework. And an important thing is, I mentioned the fact that the directive is called Payment Services Directive. And as the name indicates, the scope is only on payment account. However, we have, in the one hand, payment initiation APIs and account information APIs. So we have, in a regulation about payment services, actually a whole set of rules that actually apply to the retrieval of data. And as EBA actually raised the point in its answer to the consultation of the European Commission, it's not entirely logical to have actually these rules on data retrieval in a directive which is really about payment, because the rules do not perfectly apply, actually. And that's the reason why it is not to be excluded that in the future open finance framework, this account aggregation of payment account and other kind of data will be actually moved there. So we don't know exactly what's going to be in this open finance framework. That's going to come in Q2 2023, so quite soon. And in principle, they're going to be both open finance framework and PSD2 review, maybe PSD3, I don't know how they're going to call it, but that is going to come for sure. And given the fact that there will be changes within the European Commission in 2024, let's see whether they manage to adopt everything before that date, because if not, maybe it might be postponed, but it seems that they're really pushy and they wanted to move forward. Next to the European Commission, so you have, as mentioned previously, you have the EBA, European Banking Authority, you have EIOPA that is rather focusing on insurance, and you have the ESMA that is more on funds and securities. And these three authorities, they are interested in open finance, but one that is really active in it, that is maybe more, is EIOPA. They have been consulting on open insurance, and they have been also releasing feedback on this topic. And we see that, well, EBA, I think they are focusing on trying to fix what happened with PSD2, because of course you have a directive, but you have a lot of other text that applies to PSD2, which makes the thing quite complex. And even though I am a lawyer originally, I can tell you that this is, we would say in French, a millefeuille, a legal millefeuille. You have rules everywhere. So the EBA was merely mostly concentrated on fixing PSD2, and EIOPA is really looking into the future and putting on the table use cases and trying to push the sector to move forward, which is a very good thing. To my knowledge, the ESMA has not been particularly active on open finance, at least not releasing and publishing content. So what are the questions? The questions we asked ourselves in this report, and which will have to be answered by the DG FISMA in its proposal to come in Q2 2023. Well, first of all, should it be mandatory or voluntarily? Maybe we can do a little game. I will ask you the question, and can you please raise your hand if you consider that an open finance framework should be mandatory, meaning that we force financial institutions, and when I say financial institutions that make financial, regulated or not, should we force it or not? Please raise your hand if you consider that it must be forced. Yeah, half-half, more or less. Yeah, that's that. I think in European Union, it might be the only way to have it working. That's a bit the sad thing, but this might be the only way to do it. But in a way, there was GDPR starting in Europe, and then it has been also inspiring others. So in that case, in open finance, we're maybe starting to be late. So that's why it might be good to have rather regulation pushing. Should it be accessible to anyone? Currently, if you want to access APIs, PSD2 APIs, you must have a specific status that is granted by a financial regulator. Should this access, well, for instance, your insurance data, let's say maybe not your health, your home insurance data, would you agree that, for instance, a TPP, a company that has no regulation access this data to provide you, for instance, with an estimation of another insurance or maybe complementary insurance? Why should it be necessarily a regulated entity? Should it be by kind of sensitivity of this data? So this is only to give you an idea of the kind of questions that will need to be answered, what we try to do. But since we were a mix of stakeholders, I let you imagine the debates. Should it be free? That is one of the big questions that we had under PSD2, because a lot of banks, well, the banks had to provide, or banks or EMIs had to provide APIs and data for free. Are you motivated to provide everything for free? And a lot of companies say, well, the reason why it failed is that there was no business model. There was no business model to provide my data. I was only doing it for free. Well, Deutsche Bank apparently considered that there was a business model to say, well, I provide you this data for free, but if you come on my dev portal, you will actually have a set of a whole other data, and then you can pay for it eventually. So there are some companies that consider it is normal, and maybe it's only once, but I don't think that on the long term we can consider that everything is free. That's my personal view, but I know there are debates, but it seems that even those who consume also understand that providing data for free. If you provide me with good data quality and with data that is in a standard that is recognized and that I can really process easily, well, a lot of people are saying, I'm fine to pay for it, as long as it's not too expensive. Should we have one standard? As you maybe know, there are several standards currently with PSD2. Or should we actually maybe first focus on core data field standardization and then look into API standard by type of use cases? Who should be setting the standards? That's also a big question. And what data should be available? Because privacy is extremely important currently and generally speaking. And should we, for all use cases, determine only like data parameters, like which data should be really provided, or should we let each actor decide what are the data that can be provided? There are really a lot of questions that are not yet answered, that will maybe be answered in a few months. I'm really curious. I invite you to have a look into the report. This is very interesting topic. And if you're interested, I've just put a few websites, a few podcasts, a few things that are interesting, but there are many more. It's not limited to this, but yeah, if you're interested in the topic, you can have a look. Open Insurance Think Tank has a website. There are initiatives that can interest everyone. The standard can also be looked on the website, and if you want to comment, feel free. Thank you very much. May I have maybe the feedback of the gentleman about Brazil?
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much. Time for some questions. Open finance, PSD2. What's next?
And if you have feedback on Brazil, because I saw you raised your hand about Brazil. Well, actually, you're two exactly on the same line who raise your hands.
I'm Brazilian. Oh. Open finance change a lot our markets. Sorry. Now it's way easier to find like don't know, if you want to buy a car or a house, you can just through the apps authorize people to access your data. Is real, like, 'cause in everybody. I don't think people that's not technical understand that, but like when I look, I say, okay, that's the power of open finance and also APIs and everything. I think it was driven by Nubank. That's a new bank that's fully online, so they were like the leaders on that.
And you feel that really it's adopted by the people, why it's really embedded in your normal environment, and then you don't really feel that you use open banking. It's just
Exactly. Yeah, like I was looking, I want to buy a new car, and I want to share my data, and just a normal flow that we are used as like when you want to share data between Twitter and Facebook, for instance, like it is real. It's cool.
Well, it's good, huh? That's very good if it's a success and also adopted, because this is also one of the challenge. I mean, in Germany, for instance, payment initiation is something that existed for a long time, but in France, in Luxembourg, not. And it's a challenge to change the habit of the people.
Yeah, I think there are more things to coming. Like we have a new way to do payments called PIX. That's new. I don't know if it's already I have a news here like about that. And I think it's also is correlated now. Like they are trying to relate this with the open finance. Because one good thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, about the different countries and so on. So we consult to various regulators around the world, like Colombia, Mexico, et cetera, et cetera. And and via the World Bank and stuff. And what we advise is that like countries, they should really identify the use cases that they want to address, right? So it doesn't make sense to transplant UK open banking to Colombia necessarily, right? Or to Pakistan. We're working with Pakistan as well right now. You know, that each country should have the open banking or open finance that they need. You know, so if they want to reduce the number of unbanked, or if they want to increase competition, or so it should be specific. Yeah, and it's, as the gentleman said, like it's great if it gets embedded. You know, that's cool. Yeah.
And just one question, you do, sorry, I'm the one asking questions. you do it in the context of open bank project, this consulting.
Yeah. TSOB, yeah. Mm-hmm.